Case briefs. That's what this particular video lecture is all about. Now what we're going to do is go over quickly what is expected of you in your discussion board assignments. And you'll see that each week on our discussion board you have to do a case brief. It is a very structured type assignment where you have to find a real case using one of two different databases, and the case itself must be within the last 4 or 5 years, so relatively recent for legal purposes. And so we're going to talk about how to brief a case. A brief is a summary of the case itself. We have to find the case first, read it, and then brief it, because attorneys constantly use case briefs in court to argue their position before the judge. And often cases are very, very long, so case briefs are used. And paralegals do case briefing all the time. But in our class, what you're going to do is find a case, which is primary authority. You should not find an article. You should not find a website. You should not find a newspaper summary of a case. You have to find the case itself, and then you will brief it. And each week you'll find a case on point on one of the issues involved with that week's assignments and readings and PowerPoint slides and video lecture. So remember, you'll go to the discussion link right there on the toolbar of our class, and you'll open it up and you'll see there's lots of boards, one board for each week. These case briefs start week number 2. The first discussion board in classes is for week 1, and that's your bios. But then after that, each week you're going to do a case brief. Now don't be confused, there's a difference between a student case brief and an appellate brief. Student case brief is what we're talking about here, and we'll get more involved and in depth. Appellate brief is a document used by attorneys. They file it on appeal to argue their position. So we've talked about what a case brief is. It's a summary of a real case in certain strict formats. Let's talk about that format. And this format is given to you in your syllabus, Appendix A of your syllabus. But first you're going to start with the style of the case, the title of the case, who's suing who, and the case reference. And you should also put the hyperlink to your case, so that way other students can go to it. They can review your case, because part of this assignment is not only doing your case brief, but then replying to 2 other students, stating if you agree or disagree with their case brief and the ultimate decision of the court. So first comes the style of the case. It's going to be so-and-so versus so-and-so, and then a number, quite a few initials and letters. Those stands for things, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's the case site. And then copy paste the hyperlink to the case directly. Then comes the statement of facts. That's where you summarize the facts for the reader of how the case progressed and the important background information. Then you're going to identify the issue, the question before the court, and then you're going to identify the rule of law, the statement of law that the court identifies. Usually they identify it by looking at a statute or looking at case precedent. Then you're going to apply that rule of law to the set of facts that are before the court and then conclude. So those are the parts of a case brief. Let's go into the style. The style is only 1 sentence long, and you're going to list who's suing who and then the reference, and the hyperlink. Here's an example of a citation, the style of the case. Notice first is Martin versus Pierre, and then 62 Southern 3D 3rd 187. That's the citation information. That will tell a reader where to find this case in any law library in the United States. That's volume 62 of the Southern 3rd Reporter System, and it starts on page 187. And then finally, the jurisdiction. That's going to be Florida in this case. It's a Supreme Court case, 2015. So this is the case citation. I'll show you how to get a case citation, but it's pretty simple. You would just find it on Google Scholar, and there's a link in the upper left-hand side that says Blue Book Citation. You just click on that, and you get this automatically. Next comes the statement of facts. Here you'll give the material facts of the case so the reader understands who is suing who and why. It's the background information between the parties that gave rise to the lawsuit. The statement of facts should be a short summary. Only the essential facts. Don't copy paste. You should put them in your own words. But the important part is that you limit it to about 2 paragraphs at the most, and you summarize it in your own words, the important facts. Then address the issue or question of law that's at hand. Again, you're going to have to read your case 2 or 3 times because these cases use lots of legalese, legal phrases and terms, and that's part of this exercise. Purpose is to get you used to how judges write cases. Because we're in a common law country, we have to study case law, case precedent, because that's what controls. So, no more than 2 sentences. You're going to identify the issue before the court. You're going to concisely phrase the issues for a particular court to answer. Then the statement of law. Courts often look at statutes, regulations, rules, and also other cases, and they formulate the rule of law that they should be following, the case precedent. This is no more than 2 sentences. What legal principle does the case stand for? Or if there's more than one issue, then you should have a rule for each issue. Again, this is explained in the syllabus Appendix A. Then you're going to apply the rule of law to the set of facts and ultimately give the result. This, again, is about 2 pages long. This is probably the most important part of your case brief because you're applying the law to the facts to reach an end conclusion. Finally, you'll conclude in a brief, no more than 1 paragraph, who wins and why. Now, where do you find your cases? As I mentioned, there's 2 resources. One is the UMUC library. You can go to that library online and you access the LexisNexis system. In fact, there's a tutorial on how to find cases using the UMUC LexisNexis system. So you should find that tutorial online in the UMUC library, and you'll see you access a database that has lots of cases, and you should find a case that is no older than 5 years. If it's older than 5 years, you can't use it. And you should find a case on a particular issue in the readings for that week, and specifically identify what issue your case deals with in the readings. And finally, you should make sure your case is good law. In LexisNexis, it's easy. When you bring up the case, if you don't see a red dot in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, if you don't see a red dot, which will be very obvious, then it's good law. In other words, it has not been overruled. Keep in mind, cases can be overruled. You don't want to use an overruled case because that's bad case law. And you can easily distinguish what's good and bad on LexisNexis because you get this red dot in the upper left-hand corner. So that's the first resource where you can use to find a case. But remember, you must find a real case. Now, the second resource, or the other resource you could use, which most students use, is googlescholar.com. That's www.googlescholar.com. And it is a database run by Google. It's free to search, very powerful, and it has lots of cases. Here is what the home page looks like. And you can, and be aware, it's defaulted to search articles, but you don't want articles. You want case law. So you should always change it to case law. You put a little dot in that case law button. Now you can get specific. You can just run a search in all case law, and that's what I suggest, and then you get lots of cases. Or you can just run it in federal courts, or you could run it in state courts and select certain courts. If you look at that little link called Select Courts, you can actually drill down and go into certain court systems and select them. But I suggest you keep it as a general search. You do default, change the default to case law, and then you run a key word search, either in quotes. If you do it in quotes, that's the specific phrase, and if you just do word after word, then it's going to find either or. And remember, these keyword searches work like a general Google search. Now, here's a screen that if you decide to drill down into a certain jurisdiction, you would check those boxes. Now, on Google Scholar, you also have the ability to limit your search for the last 2 or 3 years. So you should find that option, which is on the left-hand side, and you can actually limit your search results to 2015, 2014 on, 2013 on, 2012 on. So that's a very, very, very useful function, because remember, you want to find a case, not an article, not a newspaper summary, not a law review, but a case, which we call primary authority, on one of the issues. Now, when you pull up a case on Google, it's not as easy as LexisNexis. LexisNexis, when you find a case, you know if it's good law or not because there's a red dot in the left-hand corner if it's been overruled. In Google Scholar, you actually have to read the case, and then you're going to see on the left-hand side, when you're reading your case, a button called Citations and References. That is a link where you click it and you'll pull up all the other cases that talk about your case. And you have to read to make sure those other cases have not overruled your case, because Google doesn't give you a quick view of if your case is still good law or not. So you'll find a link once you read your case on the screen at googlescholar.com. You'll see a little link that leads you to other cases that talk about your case. Now, rule of thumb, if you find a case in 2014 or 2015, chances are it's so recent, very few cases have even talked about it, and very unlikely that it's been overruled yet because it's so new. So I suggest, and it would make your life much easier, is just to find a case in 2015 or 2014. And you really don't have to worry about if it's overruled or not because it's too recent, because it takes a couple years for appeals cases to work their way through the system to be appealed or overruled. Now, once you finish your case brief, you're going to do your case brief single-spaced in a Word document, and again, it's only going to be 1 or 2 pages, very short. You're going to upload it to the discussion board for that week. Then you have to reply to 2 students, and you have to read their case brief and say if you agree or disagree with the court's decision. Now remember, when you upload your case brief, make sure that you give a hyperlink to your case, so that way other students can go to the case. They don't have to hunt for it. You have to actually do a hyperlink. How do I grade these? I give you a grading rubrics in the syllabus for our discussion board case briefs. I suggest you read that grading rubric and you know exactly what I'm looking for. It spells out how I'm going to grade you on this assignment. Very important that you go to that rubrics in the syllabus. Okay, that's how we're going to do our case briefs, which are our discussion board assignments. If you have any questions, then please, by all means, just send me an email, and I'll be happy to further explain.